Hi guys, and welcome to the first ever episode of The Breakdown. I'm Dan from JTC Guitar.
And I'm Jake, JTC artist.
Each week we will be dipping our hands into the JTC archive to see what we can rustle up for you lovely people. And this week we are looking at Guthrie Govan's Remember When, which is from Late Night Sessions 2. So, Three, should know that. Which is from Late Night Sessions 3. So let's watch a little bit of it, shall we? So, Jake, nice basic thing to start with. What sets Guthrie apart from other players?
So Guthrie had an enormous effect on the guitar world when he kind of stepped out from doing the Guitarist magazine things.
That was early 90s, was it, or something?
I think so, something like that. But then when YouTube started happening, so did Guthrie. The first time I heard of Guthrie was from some American friends, and they were talking about this guy, and there was this One Tone Merchants DVD, which you could find if you were resourcing. Some of it was on YouTube.
It wasn't always as easy.
Yeah,
was it?
Exactly. No, exactly. And it felt like a kind of prized possession to have this thing. And then, but what Guthrie was doing really, he was really showing the world that it was actually possible to be able to improvise like that.
Yeah.
In a way, improv has been much more the preserve of jazz and blues musicians, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, because there is you could say there's a bit more of a rocky element, or that fusion thing that comes in.
Exactly.
With him.
So when Guthrie came about and doing this crazy fusion stuff that also included a lot of these advanced techniques and just unbelievable fluency, but could incorporate jazz, blues, with amazing melodicism. All of that kind of came in. So the guy's just got incredible technique, flawless ears, and it's just an all-round monster. Yeah. And the likes of which were kind of not as visible, just at that point. So it's just an enormous wave made by his emergence.
So with his phrasing, what makes it so good in your eyes?
Well, so phrasing, I think a lot of people get confused with melodic construction, and so the notes you pick. Yeah. But one of the things that Guthrie's amazing at is that he can play a very, very simple phrase, but sort of, as you'll see in Remember When, on several occasions, he can take a very, very simple phrase and then become a soul singer with it and just decorate it and sort of move the rhythm about so it's kind of a bit more interesting. So let's say, just for example, we go... Right? Now I just from memory, that's one of the phrases he plays.
Which sounds on quite a simple phrase, but really.
That's the notes, right? The phrasing, that sort of thing, where he'll decorate it, but he'll decorate it in such a way that is kind of appropriate and not just a reflex. It's got a shape to it. Nothing has to be sort of attacked every time. There's so much variety of attack and expression. So that's what I would say about Guthrie's phrasing, is it's really considered. He's not afraid either to play very simply or simplistically, if that's what it calls for.
That simplistic thing is important, because otherwise, if it just becomes noise, then, doesn't it? If there's too much going on.
But let's look at it in a slightly different way. Let's think about it. The fact that he is that sure that those notes are the right ones.
Yeah,
right?
I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that he's going, oh, I need a bit of relief. It's actually that, no, this is the right content for this moment. And it doesn't need decoration. So it's that choice that also creates a kind of contrast in the phrasing, which is really important for building up climactic moments. Yeah. Again, not every note can be special. You have to have high points and you have to have low points. And by low points, I mean like this phrase is less important in the grand scheme of things. And you'll notice things like, I suppose this is melodic construction, but you'll notice things like when it's a really important point, Guthrie might bend up to his highest note.
Yeah.
The highest available note in that key. Those kind of things to do with improvisation, phrasing, it all sort of comes together to make a very beautiful sound.
Cool, so bends.
There's a lot of that.
There's a lot of that.
Bends and slides.
Bends and slides
seem to sort of dominate this particular piece. It seems to me, it's common knowledge that Guthrie is a great admirer of the slide player Derek Trucks.
Okay.
So I think what's happening in here is there's a lot of faux slide techniques going on.
And just explain to me a faux slide.
So the faux slide thing is, if you're playing with a slide, obviously the frets don't have the same effect.
No.
So when Guthrie's doing these very quick slides and vibrato all the time, you lose the sense of things locking into fret positions. But then also with bends, he might do that where you get like a sense of multiple techniques that distort the sound of fretting.
Yes.
That make it so much more interesting to the listener and create that sense of faux slide.
Yeah.
He will even do things like, if he's bent up, I think there's one bit where he goes something like that, where he's bending down in unusual increments, like a slide player would just I think that's the phrase. There's like a way it sounds good and a way it doesn't. Yeah. Obviously the way Guthrie did it sounds amazing. But yeah, his whole thing there is, just to keep this soul singer fluid sound going, and he'll use it as well for. So he has this phrase, which again is a kind of just using bends to melodic. I mean, this has a very careful melodic, what's the word?
Construction?
Well, no, this has a very specific melodic function because he's using the bends to kind of like do these suspensions, if you like.
Yeah. You're kind of waiting for the next bit.
Yeah. And so, all that stuff, it just kind of decorates some really, really strong melodic material.
So we've talked about a few things, but Guthrie's note choices specifically.
So yeah, if you were to look at the music, right, and just look at the chord chart, just go through and jot down what chord tone he's playing. You'll find that it's really dominated by kind of chord tone thinking, and he very much lands things and resolves things in a very natural way. But that's precisely because he has such good ears and such a sort of depth of musical understanding. But things like, when we get to the D7 chord from the G minor, he'll make sure that note, which isn't in the key of F, he'll make sure that is the note. That's the most important note for that chord.
Yeah.
He will go there. Now, these might be what you call non-diatonic chords in this context, which means that they're not chords that are coming directly from the parent key. So when we get to the big climaxy bit of the E flat major, he's bang on with notes from E flat.
Okay.
Now, this is really important because it means that there's an authority to him playing inside the harmony.
Yeah. So
right?
there's kind of, that's where you get the resolution later on, kind of.
Well, yeah, and he'll build up tension, like by putting playing around an E flat pitch or a pitch from this sort of the gamut of pitches that are allowable over E flat. So it might be something from the E flat pentatonic over that. So any of those notes are going to be fine. But remember, we're coming from F. So there's one where he kind of goes. He plays in the F, and then plays the E flat. So it's bang on the root. So you'll notice one of the times he bends up to the 9. When he goes there, you go, and then it comes down. So we've just got the 9 here, and then the 3rd of the next chord. Everything is in the harmony, and that's really important, especially at these big climactic moments of non-diatonic chord changes. I think so. That's a really key thing. Yeah. But it's just amazing how inside the harmony he gets. Even on bends, he's often bending up to the major 3rd. When we go for the F, he's there. He's got room to play with from there.
Have a good bend.
He can do all that stuff, all kinds of cool things like that, where he's putting in suspensions and just beautiful melodic things, little arpeggiated.
So that's getting that chord and
yeah, exactly. And it's his use of very, very simple kind of chord shapes that we're familiar with, but just placed into a more sort of melodic context that follows the harmony very, very closely. I think that's massively to his credit.
Yeah.
The way he sort of puts these things in.
So yeah, obviously people talk about Guthrie with his phrasing and his technique and chords, but rhythm. Let's talk about rhythm. How does he approach rhythm?
Well, there's a couple of things that we could talk about that's relevant to this particular performance. Yeah. He's playing very much kind of. I feel like he's playing sort of right on the beat. Not in front, not behind.
So pushing it to
very subtly, if at all. It's like his sense of time is really, really strong. But one thing I like about what he does is if he's playing a longer piece, he really can go through the gears. Okay. So what I mean by that is he's got kind of the very slow stuff that's totally locked in, and then he's got stuff which is much faster but still kind of in the machinery of the piece, and there's no discernible gap. Some things a lot of people struggle with is that they might be able to play slowly. It's something I struggle with. Might be able to play quite slowly, but then you've got like a kind of maximum tempo that you can play at. So you jump straight to that maximum tempo.
So that in between, I suppose this. Drummers is one thing. Obviously, there is that kind of.
Should have every different sort of layer of speed going.
And you find a comfortable BPM, for want of a better thing, you will play at.
Yeah, whereas Guthrie can move his technique through those gears. So I think it's a technique thing as well as a rhythm thing. But you'll notice that when he plays these lines, the faster lines in particular, they're so locked in. Yeah. But the way he makes them interesting is that he kind of repeats little nuggets to make it feel like it's a bit displaced. It gives them shape. So I think one of them. So there's this fast line which is in kind of 30-second notes. Yeah. Repeats that line, just helps your brain get like a kind of accent shape applied to it, so you can really hear what's going on. So when he does something like those little slides are very, very precise, so that everything kind of locks into time still, and that's something that I think a lot of players really struggle with when they try incorporating all of these things in. But this also, again, we were talking about it with the phrasing, it makes a very, very simple phrase.
That's much more interesting.
Yeah. So if he's, he will take a phrase like that and he might just move the notes around. I mean, I don't know if he's actually thinking like this, but he might just move the notes around so it's a bit more interesting. And the way he approaches, let's say, the way it kind of fits in the beat, not everything has to come down on beat one or start here or start there. It's a very natural sense of rhythmic phrasing that he uses.
So this is Guthrie Govan, filmed in 2012 for Late Night Sessions 3 with Remember When. Enjoy. So I hope you enjoyed Remember When. I hope you enjoyed us chatting.
Oh, I did.
Oh, I did as well. Make sure you subscribe, drop a comment down below, let us know what you thought, and you can find all the details for Remember When, the original release, in the description as well. Take care.
Cheers.